Welcome to the Career Intelligence Podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the future of work in a world shaped by AI, innovation, and rapidly changing career paths. I'm your host, Betsy Jewell. First, a heads up. This episode is a long one, but hear me out. It is absolutely worth sticking with it till the end. Our conversation goes deep into one of the biggest challenges I'm hearing from students and recent grads every single day, which is, how do I get experience when every opportunity seems to require it? And one of the themes you're going to hear throughout this conversation is that this isn't just a student problem to solve alone. Real progress happens when everyone is working together. Students taking ownership and building skills, colleges and universities creating access and support, and employers opening the door to new, more flexible ways to help young adults gain experience. There's shared responsibility here, but there's also agency, and that's where students and grads have more control than they think. I'm joined by Jeffrey Moss, founder and CEO of Parker Dewey, and this is one of those conversations that will completely shift how you think about internships, early career hiring, and what it actually takes to get your foot in the door. We will talk about why the traditional internship model is broken, what's really happening behind all the headlines about AI and entry-level jobs, and how concepts like micro-internships, or what Jeffrey calls job dates, are creating entirely new ways to explore careers and build real experience. And most importantly, we talk about how students and early career professionals can start building proof of work in a way that actually gets noticed. If you're a student, a recent grad, or a parent trying to help your young adult navigate the process, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Now let's get started. Hi, Jeffrey. Thanks so much for being here today on the Career Intelligence Podcast.
Excited to be here, Betsy. You know, I'm a huge fan of you and the important work you're doing, especially right now.
Back at you. I can't wait for our conversation. I feel like I get calls almost daily or LinkedIn messages almost daily from young adults, particularly college students, saying, help, I need work experience. I need an internship. How am I going to get it?
Again, not surprising right now because of all of the news and all of the press. And again, I would tell the young people out there, the folks looking for those, not to be as concerned as they probably may be, or as the press may be suggesting they should be. The world is not going away, and companies are still hiring actively, and they still see value in bringing in early career professionals. So yeah, there's definitely some turmoil out there, but it's not the end of the world by any stretch.
Before we get started, can you just give a brief introduction? You actually have been my guest on the High School Hamster Wheel podcast, which was quite a bit ago. Time flies. So if you could just give a quick intro about who you are and the amazing work your company does.
No, thank you. And I'm still a rodent like I was on the hamster wheel.
Makes two of us.
Wait, hamsters are rodents, or are they some? I'm kidding. So my background is a little bit atypical. I was a finance and accounting major in undergraduate. Did a summer internship at Cooper's in Libran, just to show you how old I am. It was when there was a big six, not a big four. Realized the first week of my summer internship, I didn't want to be an auditor. Was still there for the next 8 or 9 weeks, went back to school with sort of one data point of one thing I didn't think I wanted to do. Ultimately launched my career in finance with in investment banking, and then ultimately venture capital in private equity. So was sort of a pathway I hadn't really thought about in college. And it's been a number of years actually actively investing in the education and technology sectors. So have very actively watched what was going on in post-secondary education, seeing what was happening both as an investor in this space around college to career. And again, college broadly defined to include 2-year, 4-year boot camps, training programs, credentials, and everything, seeing what was going on as an investor in this space, but also seeing what was going on both from my own experience as sort of a summer intern in an internship that wasn't the right fit, but also as someone who had hired summer interns and full-time associates over a 20-year period,
Mhm.
and recognizing how broken that process is. Broken for the learners who shouldn't really be expected to know what they want to do with the rest of their lives when they're 18, 19, 20 years old, but also for employers who are trying to make great hires that are the right fit for the role, that have the skills and interest to thrive, but there's limited data where, again, in most cases, all you can look at is where someone goes to school and the major and the GPA, and there's not much data to make these decisions. So ultimately started Parker Dewey about a decade ago to help address that situation.
Yeah. And I mean, internships always have, quote, mattered, right? But, and I've been talking a lot about this on the podcast and on my LinkedIn and basically to everyone who will listen about proof of work. So, why do internships matter more now?
It's funny. I'm not sure they matter more now versus in the past, but irrespective, I think they matter so much because there is an increasing recognition that the signals employers use to make hiring decisions historically are fundamentally flawed. They
Mm-hmm.
are not predictive. Where someone goes to school, as I was alluding to before, or major, or GPA, or who their parents are, or any number of other things are actually not predictive of if someone has the skills, nor if they are aligned with the skills an organization needs at a given point in time. In the same way, learners, when they're in university, the signals they've historically used to make decisions about where they want to start their career or what industry or what company or what type of role are also fundamentally broken. Now, what has changed is access to a breadth of information coupled with a reduction in friction of making that change. And what I mean is, when I was graduating college in the mid 90s, there was very little information publicly available out there about different companies. You would physically go to the career center and look at books. The internet was just in the beginning. There wasn't much data for me to figure out if I wanted to work at an accounting firm versus an investment bank versus Procter and Gamble. And there wasn't much data for me to determine, do I want to do accounting? And by the way, accounting is different in audit versus tax versus at a company. There just wasn't as much data. The decision making was also difficult in that if I wanted to apply to a role, there was no one click job application. There was no sort of LinkedIn or ability to apply online. I physically had to, one, find the job and find the mailing address, and two, physically go and
Mm-hmm.
mail that resume and cover letter. And it was a heavy lift.
Yep.
So again, there's limited data and more friction associated with applying, which meant that you were taking a job, and to some extent, there was a higher chance you'd get it wrong, but less you could do about it, or less that you would realize that you made the wrong decision because you weren't being inundated with all of this other info.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, it's just a different, there's a whole different process, right, around getting a job. Technology is changing it. AI is
Yeah,
certainly changing it. So, can we talk a little bit about the gap versus reality? And maybe we should step
please.
back for a second. There's so much hype in the headlines. College students can't get work. Early career jobs are going away. All the myths or the chicken little sky is falling things we're hearing in all of these media sources. So,
Mhm.
what do you say to that?
A few things. First of all, AI is a really, really effective boogeyman right now.
But
So AI, don't get me wrong, AI is real the same way the internet was real, or the personal computer was real a generation before, or the calculator was real a generation before that. AI is real and it is fundamentally changing jobs. However, AI is a really effective boogeyman for the manufacturing company that isn't sure how many hires it's going to need to make next year because of concerns around tariffs, or to the technology firm that may have overhired last year for whatever reasons, or is unsure about economic uncertainty or any number of sort of real causes. it's much easier for them to point to AI
Mhm.
than to say, ooh, I made a mistake and we hired too many, or oops, we're going to miss our Wall Street earnings projections. We need to cut costs. It's a lot easier to blame AI. So there is a lot of that. I think there's also, though, general uncertainty around AI's impact. So to be crystal clear, AI will be replacing some jobs. To be blunt, they're probably not the jobs that most college students are doing. So AI will replace a huge percentage of those working in call centers.
Mhm.
AI will replace certain roles in insurance underwriting, for instance, that without a doubt.
Mhm.
But what it's also doing is creating new opportunities. And to be clear, I'm not talking about prompt engineer or tagging things so AI system, like all of that stuff is almost like some of the roles that existed in the mid 90s in the beginning of the internet. What AI is doing is fundamentally changing those roles. So the person in marketing, the research that they were doing in the early 90s is different than the mid 90s because of the internet. It's a lot more at their fingertips. The same way the work they're doing now with AI is changing, allowing the new hires to, I guess, spend more time in the higher level thought. The access to data, the access to information, even that first level of processing is 100% there.
Mhm.
Now, what those entry level roles are doing is much more of the analysis, much more of the judgment. What is the question I ask the AI tool?
Right.
How do I interpret the data and make decisions?
So that said, there's an enormous gap between the number of students and recent grads that want an internship. And I use the word internship loosely, right? Because we're starting to see the evolution of what an internship actually looks like. I just saw some data. I don't know if you posted it or you shared somebody else's, but it's like 8 million students wanted an internship last
Yeah,
year, 3 million got one. I mean, are those numbers accurate?
I, I I assume they are. Um, however, I would point to a couple of things. First of all, I would be interested to see how much or actually how little they have changed over time. Because again, they're big, scary numbers to talk about the world coming to an end, which play very well into certain talking points. But in reality, there has always been sort of a supply demand mismatch without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I think to your question about the definition of the internship, I actually think we should keep it very, very narrowly focused on call it the 8 to 10 week experience.
Mm,
Um, because when we start thinking about emerging things like micro internships, for instance, I don't think about them like I do an internship.
right.
And when we pioneered the concept a decade ago and came up with that name, it's actually right now one of the biggest mistakes I've made because
Mm,
I don't view micro internships as a proxy or replacement or even the same category as the 10-week summer experience. I think about the micro internships more as a recruiting tool for employers and a career exploration and skill demonstration tool for learners, but we'll get to more of that in a moment. To
mhm.
stay with your direct question, yes, there is a shortage of supply of available internships. However, I would also point to the fact that every year companies have internships they are offering that go unfilled every year. Every year. The bigger issue is the matching process between the candidate and the organization. So, a financial services organization that might be actively hiring for a technology role may have a shortage of applicants because all of the individuals that want to do technology, to oversimplify, think they have to go to Palo Alto or
Right,
work for just Google or Microsoft
right.
and don't realize that the big bank is actually actively hiring and has interesting roles and they're not applying. We see this all the time with manufacturing. The
Mm,
student who isn't showing up to the info session for their GM because they think, again, preconceived notions, they only have roles in the factory or only supply chain, don't realize the interesting things they're doing around AI right now. So again, they're not even applying.
mm,
Or that company doesn't come to my school. So maybe they are applying, But again, their resume is getting lost in the application avalanche that is impacting both students and companies. So there are roles out there. I think the students need to really be thoughtful about how they're doing that exploration and how they're getting in the door at the organization. And again, we can talk more about that.
I have this conversation with my tech clients mostly, but stop applying to tech companies. Every company has tech. Like, why would you not look exactly what you're saying? Auto manufacturers, finance, whoever it might be.
Well, we're working with one of the big four right now on something. So big four is actively hiring entry level accountants. And again, there's all of this noise about there is accounting going to get replaced by AI?
Mm-hmm.
No, because what they are doing is they are actually, and again, they have a micro internship posted right now. We want you to look at the public filings for a public company, go through, look at the 10K and 10Qs, and we want you to create a plan that leverages AI to support you in the audit process. Create a series of prompts then, look at the feedback that came out, revise, refine, etc. Again, the accounting firm recognizes that the role of the entry level accountant has changed. It's no longer about how well one understands GAAP or SFASs or anything else. It's about the ability and the judgment to effectively, in this case, conduct an audit. So for the student that has preconceived notions about accounting, they don't realize how much technology is actually flowing into that. Again, we're trying to encourage that exploration. And unfortunately, the traditional process, even with technology, still looks like it did to some extent when I was applying. That we're asking students and employers to essentially get engaged through the 10-week summer internship or get married through the full-time role. We believe there's a step missing. How can you create these job dates, if you will? And the metaphor was less creepy when a college student shared it versus an old married guy like me. But how can we create lower risk, lower stakes experiences for learners and employers to essentially get to know each other beyond the shaking hands at the career fair or the I'm sitting in the Zoom info session, but to actually have a real experience that mimics what they're going to do in that first role, where the student can learn that accounting is more than just flipping through financial statements. And so the employer can look at a student's skills beyond GPA.
Exactly. Because as we know, and the data shows, it doesn't matter so much where you go, but what you do when you get there, right?
Oh,
And GPA really doesn't factor in for many.
it's funny, and I don't know if this has been publicly released yet, so apologies if I'm talking out of school. The global head of McKinsey was sharing a few weeks ago that they did a huge analysis of their own early career program. So again, this is one of the most elite selective organizations in the world. They had found that the signals of a successful individual at McKinsey, and I'm not just talking entry level, they looked at the people that were the top partners, very little correlation to academic pedigree, to school, to major, the GPA. What they found were the biggest predictors or the biggest correlation were things like, did the individual work retail growing up? Because that shows certain skills. Was the individual a student athlete? Again, it's not just about grit and teamwork and leadership, it's also about coachability. Can they take feedback and refine? And the third was, did they overcome a significant challenge? And we're not talking the kind of challenge that you talk about in the I'm applying to college
Right.
essay, but a
Right.
real fundamental challenge. How did they deal with that adversity and overcome it? Those were the three biggest signals. It had nothing to do with, again, where you went to school or your GPA.
Okay, so we know that there's a disconnect between employers getting that true perception or vision of what these learners can do, students, learners can do. And on the flip side, it's really hard for students to send those signals to employers about what they can actually do. And that's where Parker Dewey comes in, right?
Um, yes, amongst other places, but yes.
So can you talk a little bit? And I understand your model. I'm sure some of my listeners don't. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? And I love, by the way, I love the analogy about job dates versus marrying a company, and I don't find it creepy.
And I wish I could come up with a better metaphor, but it
Yeah.
actually works really well. And by the way, just to keep on that, and then I'll answer your question, I push back on the student. I was like, well, aren't info sessions or job shadows or mentoring or coffee, aren't those dates? They're like, no, that's swiping right or left on whatever app. I actually want to go on a date. I might think I want to get married or engaged to someone who is, again, the metaphor she was using, someone who's a redhead. Um, but will I go on a date with a blonde? Sure, I'll go, and I might realize I have a great time, and maybe I had this preconceived notion, but I might also go on and realize, no, what? It's not the right fit, and that's okay. It's okay to figure that out for the student and for the employer. It's better that the student realize that something's not the right fit before they turn into me at Cooper's and Libran, and they're sort of 10 weeks into a summer internship. That was a waste of a seat for Cooper's. They could have had someone that was a better fit. And by the way, maybe I wouldn't have been the right fit for them. Maybe again, they could have gotten someone else if I didn't have the right skills who could have sat in that seat. That's all we're trying to do, is not replace the engagement or replace the marriage, but again, use these projects to get an authentic perspective.
Completely agree. And I think students have been led to believe, or learners have been led to believe that, and I hear it all the time, I can't make a mistake. I can't pick wrong. I can't make a bad decision. Like, I need to pick the right thing. And I wish there were more. I don't know if it comes out of higher ed. I don't know if it comes out of industry. I don't know where the message comes from to say to these kids, I call them all kids, exactly what you're saying. Try it, even if it's not the perfect, right? I always say all work is good work because
I
you're learning
agree.
something about yourself, you're demonstrating your skills, all the things. But I had a guest on the previous podcast who said, prototype your life.
Yep.
Find as many of these short-term experiences. They don't have to be formal internship programs, but short-term experiences over the summer to weed things in and weed things out.
100% agree. 100% agree. But again, the problem is most employers are only offering high or at least higher stakes experiences. So I totally understand the student's perspective. If I think I want to be an investment banker and I get my summer internship at Goldman Sachs, I don't want to screw that up. That is high stakes if I make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
What we are trying to do is truly create these low stakes, low risk opportunities for learners, for that first or second year student to explore. I'm not sure if I want to do investment banking versus consulting versus work at the CPG. I don't know if I want a big company versus a startup. I don't know if I want to do marketing versus finance. Again, we want them to explore, and companies should participate and offer these opportunities, not just because of mission and feel good, though that's certainly beneficial. It's actually in the company's best interest to offer these experiences as well, because it
Right.
allows them to sort of showcase who they are to learners, but also to get mutual insights, not one-way insights, but mutual insights if the individual is the right fit for the company. Because there's no good or bad company, there's no good or bad candidate. It's all about fit. Is Jeffrey bringing the right skills to Betsy's company that Betsy needs right now? And is Jeffrey going to thrive there or not?
Exactly. I get a lot of recent grads or even a lot of college seniors this year who will come to me and say, I'm getting my insert degree here, marketing, finance. I'm not picking on them, but they'll come and they'll be like, I have no idea what I want to do with this degree. And I'm like, have you done any career exploration? Well, not exactly, what we
Well,
talked about in the classroom.
but we're also getting into another issue that I have right now is I think students have lost agency for this. And I have a high school senior, so I see some of this right now, and my wife and I try to work through it. But back to my earlier comment, when you and I were in college, yes, the career center was there and we could go and look at but we still had agency. We
Mm-hmm.
had to take ownership of, I want to go send this resume out to these 10 employers. And no one was forcing us. And by the way, we couldn't just go online and click. Students have lost that agency. And as an aside, it ties back to one of the core rules of Parker Dewey in that we do not allow colleges or universities to require their students to participate. They can nudge, they can encourage, they can suggest, but we want students that want to be there. We want students that want to do that exploration, that want to get their foot in the door. And what we found is if you're offering students what they actually see as valuable, the opportunity to learn about a company, demonstrate skills, build relationships, by the way, make a few $100, they are going to show up. It's not that hard, but we need them to make that decision on their own. So again, that student, back to your point, the student needs to take agency. The other problem with it is a lot of times the way we ask students to take that ownership is either uncomfortable or artificial. So for example, every college has a mentoring program or alumni program. It is really uncomfortable. As a first or second year student reaching out to Betsy, the alum from my school, saying, tell me about a day in your life, or let's talk about our basketball team. It's an uncomfortable, artificial conversation. So it's hard to ask students to take agency. One of the things we found is these micro-internships, these bite-sized experiences, create a catalyst that allows that student to take agency. So I'm working on a project for Pepsi. I see Betsy graduated a couple of years ahead of me and is a brand manager at Coca-Cola or brand manager at P&G. Let me reach out to her and pick her brain on this project I'm doing. Let me go leverage the professor's office hours to get input. Or maybe I wasn't selected for a project. Let me now go to the career center, and instead of it being just review my resume, it's, hey, I applied to these 5 projects and I wasn't picked. Can you take a look at my responses to the questions and give me feedback? It's almost like being a fly on the wall in an interview, which students don't have access to. But again, it creates and encourages the type of agency that's so vital, not just in landing that job, but in anyone's career.
I'm carefully choosing my words here because I often get higher ed people mad at me. But I feel like there should be more accountability within higher ed. And I'm not saying I don't think career services is doing a good job. They are doing a good job and they're doing everything they can. But, my son goes to a school with 60,000 students. There's just not enough resources and support to go around. And wouldn't it be great if exactly what you're saying, I didn't get this internship, and this is a little bit off on a tangent now, but, I didn't get this internship or this project or whatever it is. Help me. Can you sit down with me and go through my resume with me and help me figure it out? And I can tell you that that kind of support is not available everywhere.
I think what you're bringing up, first of all, career centers and schools should not be frustrated about hearing that. And what you're bringing up is really, really valid. And I'd say there's a few different components to it. And by the way, it's no one's fault.
Right.
The first is career centers, for the most part, are under-resourced.
Yep. Underfunded.
Underfunded. They are sometimes the redheaded, and again, this is what they said to me, and not my words, but the redheaded stepchild, because they're not revenue generating like advancement. They're not doing research like the faculty. They're kind of, everyone knows they're important, but it doesn't fit neatly. All of those things are true, but even in cases where there's massive staffs and tons of funding and everything else, there's still challenges. The other thing I would say is they are held accountable, but I think oftentimes for the wrong metrics. Because again, the metrics have not evolved. So they are held, and we have 900 plus university partners. We work with kids from over 5,000 institutions, but it's almost 1,000 that we have formal partnerships with. They tell us all the time, I need to get X number of companies to my career fair. That is the metric I'm held accountable for. Or I need to have placement of Y%, or I need to have X number of jobs offered. There X number. All of those things are reasonable things to be held accountable for, but that's what they focus on. Again, what gets measured gets done. I would argue, by the way, I am a fan of career fairs, but I would also argue if you have an employer that might be geographically distant and can't come to the career fair, but wants to recruit your students, that's a really, really good thing, but may not be held in or may not be counted in the metrics that they're being held accountable for. And that's some of where the breakdown is. I also think there is sometimes too much focus on the short-term metrics versus the long-term. So we're working with a college right now where they are very actively using micro-internships as a way to quote unquote protect their career fair. So what they're hearing from employers is, why am I going to the career fair? I show up, the booth is empty. Kids don't know who we are. Or I come to the career fair, it's great, I get all these names, but then when I send the students emails and ask them to apply for jobs when I'm interviewing on campus, it's crickets. So what we're doing is collaborating with the school to say, those employers are adding micro internships into their playbook, not as a replacement for the internship, not as a replacement for the career fair, but hey, Betsy, you visit our career fair booth. How would you like to work on a real sort of 10-hour project for us to learn more about us and for us to learn about you?
Love
That's
that.
pretty, yeah, I mean, that's pretty damn compelling to a college student. Or
Yeah.
you never
Brilliant.
heard of our organization, visit our info session, our career fair booth. We're going to talk about these 10 different projects that you can work on right now, that you're going to get paid. You're going to learn about us. You're going to get to put them on your students flock to that. And again, it's not a replacement for the career fair. It recognizes the accountability of those career centers, but sometimes you just need to make that case.
That's brilliant. Exactly
Wasn't
what you're
my
saying.
idea. I mean,
Yeah.
these are all things that come from the schools and come from the employers. Literally, one of the employers said, I have this challenge. We get the names, we blast them emails, they don't show up. Or we want to get to know more sophomores, but we don't offer summer internships until they're juniors. And they said, can we offer them these micro internships? What a great way to keep them warm during the X number of months. And by the way, we also get to see their skills. We can figure out, does Betsy have strong, whether it's technical skills around the role or job specific, and also communication and problem solving and professionalism. We can see all these things. So not only does this help us keep these students warm and engaged, it also gives us insights into their skills, but gives them a chance to learn about us.
So let's talk about that, more insight into their skills. Because again, proof of work, if I had a nickel for every time I've said that in the past 30 days, because we're hearing that from employers, right? Don't just tell me what you can do, show me, demonstrate how you think, how you work, the value you're going to bring. What are you seeing in the micro internship world? Is that moving the needle in that direction? Is that giving students proof of work?
100%. I was on with a student last week who's a senior at Purdue University. And I went to Indiana. So the fact I'm shouting out a Purdue kid means a lot. He reached out to me over LinkedIn. Whenever students will reach out, I'll follow up. I wound up talking to him for about 45 minutes, and he was talking about how the micro internships have fundamentally changed his life. I have chills just saying it. And
Wow.
these are his words, not mine. And talked about as a freshman, sophomore, is going to career fair and uncomfortable, and no one wanted to talk to him. And he was uncomfortable talking to them and all of these other things. And they started working on these projects. Again, he was applying and doing these projects. And long story short, I think he's going to work for Ford full time. And he said when it got to the interview, all they wanted to talk about were these micro internships. That was it. Mm-hmm. That was it, because they were going through and they're saying, tell me about, like, I see you have these bullets on your resume about how you did an analysis of blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you thought about it. Why did you take this approach? What were the and help the student build the resume and build a LinkedIn profile in the way you can't really do otherwise. And look, one of the things, I'm going off on the tangent a bit here, but we always get the question about, like, can sort of experienced professionals go on Parker Dewey for a side hustle or for other work? And my response is, you don't need to, because someone like you or me that has years or decades of experience, we have resumes where we've done things in the job. We have LinkedIn profiles that are built out with bullet points of these things we accomplished and things we can talk about in an interview. The problem with college students is they don't have that. Again, back to, the employers. It's not the employer's fault. The only signals they've had historically are, again, GPA and major. The secret of the micro internships is it's really about helping the students build their resume. It's helping them build their LinkedIn profile. It's helping them provide signals as an alternative to academic pedigree to show who they are to employers, and in the same way for employers to evaluate and learn about the students, because now they have more predicted, valid, reliable signals than if I was a 3.7 versus a 3.6.
So, how many students are taking advantage of getting access to? I have to believe there's a limited supply of micro internships, whatever that number is. Are you, what's the quote acceptance rate, if that's the right question?
Yeah, it is. So first of all, there is definitely a shortage of projects relative to level of interest of demand by students. And that's not surprising. And I expect it's been the case since day one, and it will always be the case. And again, we think that's okay. We think not perfect, but we think it's okay, especially since most students aren't just doing one project once. Most students are doing multiple projects over the course of their experience. So maybe first or second year, they're doing it much more to explore and start to build a resume. And as they're working on projects, they're able to hone more into what I want to do. So maybe as a freshman, sophomore, I'm trying a whole bunch of different stuff in marketing. And then when I'm a junior, maybe I'm honing in on really want to do market analysis for big companies. So they're getting more focused. And again, by the way, that's good, not just for the student, but also for the employer, because when the employer decides to hire Betsy for her summer internship or full-time role, they have confidence that she's not going to have the grass is greener issue, that she has tried big companies, small companies, different areas of marketing, et cetera, and she makes the decision to join. She's going to stick around because she knows it's the right fit. To the other part of your question, the student experience really depends. Just to be very, very transparent. First of all, it is up to the student. Students have to apply if they are going to be selected. And if you just log in once and apply the one or two projects, chances are you ain't going to be selected. And if every project has a short answer question, something like, why should we pick you? Or how would you approach this? If you answer the question and it's riddled with typos, or have something like, you should pick me because I have free time, again, you ain't being picked. Just to be very, very direct. And again, we think that's a good thing. Make your mistakes on our platform early on so you can learn from it. The other part of the experience that depends is, to be blunt, where students go to school. And it's something I struggled with since day one if we wanted to allow this, because I wanted an open platform. I didn't want this as something where it's just going to be the kids from Harvard or Stanford or Wharton getting picked. And again, fortunately, the data shows that's not the case. However, what we are also seeing is a number of the colleges and universities are leaning into this. And it's got nothing to do with academic selectivity, it has nothing to do with how expensive the school is or anything else. It includes community colleges, large states, small liberal arts. It's the full gamut. And what the schools are doing, and again, this is a huge predictor, is schools are sharing this with their employer partners. Not as a, hey, can you do me a solid and give our kids some experiences, but rather, my earlier comment, oh, I hear you want to get to know our sophomores. Here's a really effective way to get to know our sophomores. You should offer them these real projects, or you're having a shortage of kids with AI skills who are interested in manufacturing. Here's a really interesting way, or you're coming to present to XYZ club. So again, when the schools are doing that and letting employers know, again, the employer that is going to be on campus at University of Central Florida, or the employer that may not have been on campus at UCF historically, that UCF is trying to engage, they're sharing this with the employers, and the employers are using it as a way to get to know those students. So again, some of the experiences do unfortunately depend on what school you go to. And I would say for the students there, if your school is not actively involved, you should be asking them to. And you should reach out to Parker Dewey, and we're happy to work with you. We don't charge the schools anything. We don't charge students anything. Students are paid for their work. We love collaborating with the schools. We're happy to work with you, to sort of help you help your school, because it's creating more opportunities. And again, this is a huge predictor. Schools are sharing this with their employer partners. Not as a, hey, can you do me a solid and give our kids some experiences, but rather, my earlier comment, oh, I hear you want to get to know our sophomores. Here's a really effective way to get to know our sophomores. You should offer them these real projects, or you're having a shortage of kids with AI skills who are interested in manufacturing. Here's a really interesting way, or you're coming to present to XYZ club. So again, when the schools are doing that and letting employers know, And again, to be blunt, it's not intended to create more work for schools. We know the career centers have too much on their plates already. We know they're under resourced. This is something that helps them respond to the challenges or goals that employers are sharing with them anyway.
It sounds like it could strengthen the pipeline from school to employer.
When you say pipeline, you mean the pipeline for the schools to bring more employers to campus, or the pipeline for employers at a given school, or both?
I think in both directions, no?
100%. So again, we'll see schools use this to deepen relationships with the employers who are already on campus. Here's a way to do more. You've always recruited our finance students. Here's a way to get to know our liberal arts. Or we heard that you may not be coming back to the career fair next year. We have this great idea to sort of help you get more engaged. Or do you want to do a platinum sponsorship? Now it also includes X number of micro interns from our. So we're seeing all of these creative ways. And then on the other side, we're also seeing it again. You don't yet recruit on our campus. We understand that maybe your campus recruiting budget was cut, or you need to limit the number of focus schools, or it's just geographically difficult. Here's a great way to get to know our students anyway. That doesn't require you to be on campus. Maybe ultimately they realize that you should be a focus school, but even if not, that's okay. They're still providing opportunities for your kids.
Can we talk about the experience for the students? So it's simple. I don't want to oversimplify it, but they go to parkerdewey.com and they create a free account, right, and register.
Mm-hmm.
There's no friction.
It is simple. You're not.
Yeah.
Well, there is friction. And I want to hit on this. There's a little bit of friction for the student, but it's intentional. You go to Parker Dewey, you make a decision to go there as a student. Again, you're not allowed to be forced. Maybe you heard about it from this podcast, your own research or your school. You go there, you create an account, you enter information about yourself. You can upload your resume or LinkedIn. And while we certainly could scrape it and automate it, we've chosen not to. Again, back to my earlier comment about agency, our view is as a student, if you're not willing to spend the 5 minutes, that's a signal. We don't want it to be a massive lift, but we want there to be a little friction. Then you'll see the projects that are available. If you're interested, you apply. Again, it is not just one click. I mean, you do have to click a button to apply, but each project has at least one question. Sometimes there's 2 or 3. Again, it's not meant to take you an hour or even 15 minutes, but we want you investing 5 minutes. And again, we do that for a couple of reasons. One, the company wants to know, the client, that's posting the project, wants to know that Betsy, the student, is actually interested. They also want to be able to see who you are beyond your resume. Why are you interested? Do you have attention to detail? How are your communication skills? Again, that is very, very, very intentional. And by the way, that friction is actually good for the student as well. Because what it does is it helps overcome one of the biggest challenges employers shared before, which is, again, this application avalanche. How do you as a student stand out when 25,000 other students applied because it was a one-click application and maybe only a small percentage of them actually have interest? Well, through these short answer questions, you can convey that. You can convey why you're passionate about working at a CPG, or why you've always wanted to work for a small business doing environmental, blah, blah, whatever it is, you're able to stand out. By the way, the companies will not see anything about a student unless a student applies. So this is not like the job boards where companies can spend a bunch of money and you're going to get blasted with emails. The student controls it. You have to apply. Company then decides who they want to select. If they select you, you get an email saying, congratulations, here's some best practices, here's the company's contact info. They get the same thing, and then you engage with the company directly, the client company, as much or as little, sort of as is appropriate for that project. But part of what we're also encouraging students to do along the way is to, again, leverage those other resources they have through university. Go to your professor at office hours, ask for feedback, reach out to an alum. If your school has various online learning resources, go leverage those. We want the student to take advantage of all of these great resources. When the project's done, update your resume, update your LinkedIn, build that relationship with the contact at the organization. Even if you realize it's not the right fit for a full-time role, that's okay. That's an okay outcome. If you
Right.
do a great job, they're hopefully a champion for you and want to make introductions and want to be helpful and want to serve as a reference down the road.
So if they don't get chosen for the micro internship, is there any communication to them?
No. And it's funny, it's something we've gone back and forth with over the past decade. In the early days, students would get a notification. And again, we tried to word it carefully. We're so
Mm-hmm.
sorry you weren't picked, et cetera, et cetera. What we were hearing from the students, and again, this was 10 years ago, even before the current craziness, is they started to find it discouraging
Mm-hmm.
because they were getting rejection letters from other stuff and sort of it just, they didn't like it. So we've chosen not to proactively notify them. They can certainly log into their portal and see what projects they applied for and which ones are still open, so they'll know if they weren't picked.
So there
They
is
can
status.
still
They can check their status
they can
online.
check it, but again, they have to take ownership. And
Okay,
part of the
that's
reason we
fine.
do that is so they learn. But what we also want them doing, and again, we have this happen. This isn't hypothetical. In fact, I still personally do this. So a student, we're hoping they reach out to the career center, but sometimes we'll get emails.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I do this. Hey, I applied to 5 micro internships. I haven't been picked. Do you have any feedback? We have members of our team. And again, I still do this sometimes. I'll go in and I'll look at their applications and I will give them feedback. And again, one of the most common things we see is, yeah, your resume has been scrubbed to perfection. You did all the right stuff. You went to resume workshops, but in your short answer question, you got like 5 typos. You may want to think about that. Students don't realize that they've gotten so used to, again, the text communication, or
Mm-hmm.
you're applying to a project that says you need to understand Power BI. I see that you do, but you didn't convey it in your answer. Or maybe you don't have Power BI experience. Like, if this is important to you, maybe you want to go get some learning in Power BI, go leverage LinkedIn Learning or whatever resources you have as a student. So again, we want, back to your point, we want this to be a low risk experience. There is a reason our organization is named Parker Dewey. It is not after my kids or my street or my pets. We are named after Francis Parker and John Dewey, who were the thought leaders in experiential learning 100 plus years ago. They were the pioneers, and you learn through doing, you learn through these experiences. We want this for the students to be a learning experience.
So what do you think this looks like over time? In the next year, 5 years, 10 years? How do you, crystal ball time, but how do you see this evolving?
Yeah. My vision for this, and it's been this way since I founded the organization, again, about 10 years ago, was we believe micro internships should be as core to the campus recruiting and career exploration on the student side process as the summer internship, as the career fair, as the info session, as the interview. Again, the projects are not a replacement or proxy for summer internships. They're not a light version of a summer internship or apprenticeship. They are not a replacement for the capstone taking place in class or anything else. They are another tool for learners to explore roles, demonstrate skills, build relationships with prospective employers, and for those employers to reach students, to keep them engaged, to get to know them in a way that goes beyond what they're doing right now. And we think it should be a fundamental part of the process. We believe that the historical model of jumping right to the engagement, from going swiping right or left to get engaged or getting married, is broken. And we will not be satisfied. And again, whether it's through Parker Dewey or just in general, we will not be satisfied until these micro internships, till the concept of experiential recruiting is fundamentally integrated into that recruiting process. And again, the fortunate thing, having been an investor in education for, again, too long, is this is one of the few areas in all of education where interests are aligned. It's not a win-lose. It's not sort of the employer wins and the student loses or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 stakeholders win. Students want to find great jobs. We believe these projects help them do that. Employers want to make great hires. This helps them do that. The universities want to help their students land great jobs. They want to help employers hire from their schools. They want to do all of these wonderful things. This helps them do it. It sits right in the middle in a way that benefits all 3 of those groups. Now it's just a matter of helping more of those employers understand why this is vital. So I know we started off the conversation talking about the doom and gloom out there in the world, about AI eating jobs and not enough and all of those things may be out there in the message. We believe that this little thing that we're doing helps address them, because employers do want to hire better. And we just need to integrate this into the process to help employers address those challenges they're facing, which is, again, exactly what we're doing.
This is so helpful. And it just really paints the picture of what the landscape looks like and what the opportunities are. And I know that obviously you've been around for a decade, you're integrated with lots of schools and lots of businesses, but I want to continue to get this word out because I feel like there are still more young adults, students, and otherwise. And that brings me actually to a question that I meant to ask. So do you have to be a college student?
No.
So can you talk about that? Like, what are the requirements for somebody to engage with Parker Dewey as a student, not as an employer?
Now, we use the term career launcher.
Okay.
And the way we define it, and again, you'll hear me say college students, and I probably shouldn't. I use it as shorthand. The way we define it is, again, college student or recent graduate, and college broadly defined, 2-year, 4-year certificate, boot camp, training program, has nothing, by the way, to do with age. We do a ton with adult learners. The only age requirement is you have to be over 18.
Right.
We have found that some form of either current or recent involvement in a post-secondary program of some sort, again, whether it's formal or informal, tends to be where we fit well. So back to my earlier comment, if you're someone with 20 years of experience looking for a side hustle, we ain't the right fit. There's other places that are better, but we'll see a lot of individuals where maybe they graduated last year and they took that first job and they realized it wasn't the right fit, or they got riffed, and like any number of things. We'll also see, again, first and second year students. We'll see undergrad and grad. We have always been an open platform, and that's important. Back to my comment, we have students from partnerships with almost 1,000 colleges and universities, but we welcome everyone, which is why we have students from over 5,000. We don't do any marketing to the students or career launchers. We don't do any marketing to the schools. We want to be there as a resource, but we don't want to force anyone. We want people here because they want to be here. The other thing, and again, sorry, I'm going back to something you were saying before. I think it's really important to focus on the employer side, because again, that's where the word needs to be spread more. So for any of the students or parents listening to this, let employers know. Because one of the things that we believe, and again, there's a lot of other trends, not just the AI and other nonsense, but you have things about skills-based hiring, a lot of discussions about work-integrated learning and experiential learning. Our belief is everything that we do needs to be both easy and valuable for the employers. Easy meaning it can't be a heavy lift. We get rid of all of that. There's no employment law stuff. We take care of it. The students, when they're completing the projects, are employees or contractors at Parker Dewey, which, by the way, not only makes it easy for the employer and for the school, it also protects the student because they know they're going to be paid and proper accounting and everything else. There's no legal issues. The students aren't sort of accessing anything sensitive of the company. Again, it had to be easy for the companies to say yes and plug right in, but it also needs to be valuable. So while we talk about the value to the students a lot, how it helps them build their resume and explore and leverage the resources their school's providing and all these other things, for employers, our conversations are very, very direct. You are getting inundated with resumes and can't determine who actually has interest in your company. Here's a way to solve that. Or you're a manufacturing organization, you have no problem filling a certain role, but difficulty filling others. Here's a way to help. Or you're trying to get to know students who are from the Detroit area, but might be going to school elsewhere. Here's a way this can help. Or you're hiring people, but not seeing the conversion rate from intern to full-time. Here's a way this can help. So everything that we talk about very intentionally focuses on how this solves a pain that the employers are having, not to the detriment of the school, not to the detriment of the student, but in a way that helps both.
I have heard from some employers that they don't have the capacity to offer an internship program. And when they say capacity, like somebody has to manage it, somebody has to run it. And I've heard from students, yeah, I got an internship, but I got
Hmm.
no leadership, no feedback. I was sitting at a desk every day. Like,
Yeah.
I get that. To your point, it is a heavy lift. So it seems like a slam dunk to do something like this. I can't
Well,
imagine that more employers wouldn't be taking advantage of it.
well, and they are. I mean, that's why we're growing at huge multiples every year, and we're seeing continued adoption. What's been interesting to me is it's both organizations that already have strong internship
Mm-hmm.
and early career programs, but also those, to your point, that don't. And
Mm-hmm.
to be crystal clear, I don't think about micro internships as a proxy or facsimile of, or a replacement for the summer internship,
Mm-hmm.
but a complement. Now, to your point, if I don't yet have an internship program, this is a really effective way for me to dip my toe in the water
Mm-hmm.
and see what it's like and experience. And maybe ultimately it leads me to offering an internship program, maybe not, but either way, the student's having great experience. One of the things that's also really interesting is we're hearing from companies that have internship programs that this actually improves them, not just for all the reasons that we said, better selection and better candidates and everything else. One of the things we heard from an employer quite a bit is it helps, quote unquote, retrain our hiring manager. And what I mean by that is we either have hiring managers that always focus just on certain schools or GPA. This becomes a way for them to get to know that students from different backgrounds are great. But more interestingly, this project based approach helps our hiring managers do a better job when they're actually managing the summer interns. So, for instance, the micro internship in marketing might be we want you to create a series of social media posts to highlight blah, 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 or do market analytics and create a data visualization around these topics. Now, when an individual starts for a summer internship, in the marketing department, that manager who historically has said, okay, can you go get me coffee or just sit in meetings with me, now starts to have this project based mindset. So
Mm-hmm.
even though Jeff, the intern, is going to be there for 10 weeks, it's, hey, Jeff, I want you to do this. Again, market size analysis, similar to what they start to think differently. They start to think in terms of concrete deliverables, which leads to a better experience, not just for that manager and company, but also for the learner.
Absolutely. I've actually been encouraging some of my clients who haven't been able to land summer internships. And I'm, by the way, Parker Dewey is usually one of the first sentences out of my mouth. But
Woohoo!
besides that, I have been encouraging them to go out and pitch themselves for project work to small local businesses
Yep.
because exactly what you're talking about, like some that don't have formal internship programs yet, but and they don't even, they just don't have
Need
the mindset yet to think about what, what could a college student do for me for two
us.
weeks this summer? And it could be enormous, cost them nothing, not nothing, but next to nothing, and move the needle. And by
I
the
want
way,
to
give these kids experience.
I want to build upon that because again, I love that idea. Um, we've been doing things both with individual students, but also with schools that are similar. So schools have alumni,
Mm-hmm.
alumni who may have graduated just a couple of years ago and don't have the ability to drive the internship program, or alumni that aren't even involved in HR. I graduated 5 years ago from XYZ school. I'm in marketing. I'm the one to talk to about an internship program. I don't make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the school asking is going to likely fall on deaf ears. In best case, maybe they get the handoff to the campus recruiting team who they're talking to anyway. What we're seeing now is, hey, Jeff, you're in marketing. Would you be willing to have a student from our school do like a 10-hour project for you? You don't have to hold their hand. You're not going to get in trouble from legal or HR. Like, the alumni says, sure. What
Mm-hmm.
a great way to give back and give the student a great experience. And by the way, maybe it's even something that's going to help me as the alum not only feel good, but I'm getting something off my plate. And it becomes a catalyst for me to go to my HR team and say, hey, I just worked with Jeff from XYZ school. Like, he did a great job. We should talk to him about a summer internship. We're also doing the same thing direct to students, whether it's a small company or a large company. So, Jeff, you graduated or you're a student at Indiana University. You really want to go work in finance. Go reach out to David, who works at BNY, or go reach out to Dan, who works at XYZ company, and pitch it yourself. Ask if you can come do a 10-hour, 15-hour project. we'll handle all of the back end. We'll make it easy. But that's pretty compelling. Again,
Now,
what alum is going to say no?
are you suggesting that students seek those out and then work through Parker Dewey? I mean,
We
why
are
not,
seeing it.
right?
We are seeing it. The benefit of working through us is, to be blunt, it protects the student.
Yes.
We also have received a series of grants from different organizations. So sometimes we can even get the student paid in a way that they don't even have to ask the company. Again, students who want to reach out and ask, chances are we can figure out a way to make that work through a variety of the different grants we received. And by the way, to beginning of the conversation, it's a great way for the student to show actual interest and actual intent. Think about what that means. Like, I am reaching out to you, Jeff, at I'll pick on a prior firm. I'm reaching out to you, Jeff, at DLJ. I want to be an investment banker. I know you do the education sector. I'd love to do a market analysis of emerging trends in education. Can I do that project for you? It would be a really good experience. All I need you to do is, one, confirm that that's kind of interesting. And two, I'm going to give you a deliverable that you can review in about 5 or 10 minutes. Just give me some feedback. Like, who's going to say no?
Right.
But again, it puts the onus on the student to say, okay, I want to work at DLJ and I'm kind of interested in this. And again, the student has to invest 5, 10, 15 minutes making the effort to reach out. But we think that's a valuable skill anyway.
This is all just, my head is just spinning right now in a good way.
Like the hamster wheel?
Yeah, much like the hamster wheel, but in a good way this time. Well, just because there's so much opportunity, and these kinds of ideas and strategies that students, recent grads, whomever, can start putting into place.
And that's, oh my God, it's again, one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's not their fault, is again, that lack of agency of the students, or if you want to take it to the extreme, the victimization. And I'm not trying to minimize, certainly your number of students, tough times, all of those things. I certainly understand, but we've gotten to this point where the student just expects the career center to have all of these great jobs and to hold their hand and to do all of those things. And in reality, one, a lot of the career centers don't have the resources to do that. Two, that's not the real world. When you go and start a full-time role, that's not what's going to be happening. So getting to build and develop those skills as a student not only is going to help them land that summer internship and full-time role, it'll help them be more successful once they have it. And we are here to provide support. I mean, we have an entire team that works closely with schools and universities on these things. So the students don't need to do it alone. They need to take that first step. They need to reach out. We're not going to hand them a script to use. We'll certainly help them think about it. We'll certainly provide coaching. We'll certainly share some feedback. We'll give them some ideas and best practices, but the students don't have to be victims. They don't have to. I know things feel tough right now. There are jobs out there. And even, again, if there's not that formal summer internship or full-time role, there's other opportunities for students to create those experiences. In fact, we've seen plenty of companies where again, the company wasn't hiring, or the individual wasn't a decision to hire, or whatever, where a student goes and makes that pitch. I want to do a project for you. I want to do that. And the student does such an amazing job. We've seen companies actually create new roles, whether they're summer internships or full-time roles, based upon that.
Well, any employers that are listening to this conversation, listen up. This is an opportunity.
Or parents. I mean, we've seen one of the schools we're working with has done a great job engaging not just alumni, but also parents of current students.
It's a great
where they
idea.
are reaching out and saying, we have this great program of, I'm not going to share it, but the school name helping other school namies. And it's really, really powerful. And again, these are not, again, the fancy school where we think about the old boys network or anything else. Like, we are seeing this exact thing happen at community colleges.
I was just going to say, I would think this would really catch fire at smaller schools, community colleges, where you do have a lot of,
It's all over. I mean, we have a program that's very publicly discussed at Bucknell, which is great for Bucknell sophomores. Like, what a great opportunity, again, for parents and alumni and recruiters. Again, they're doing a solid. They are helping a Bucknell sophomore get experience and explore, but it's not just social impact or feel good. It's also like, here's a way for our organization to get to know someone who we may want to hire.
Yep.
And to have someone out there talking about our organization to start to build this relationship. And they're pretty powerful things.
Well, I'm going to leave it at that because we could, as usual, talk for hours.
I love talking to you.
I know, back at you. I have a feeling this will not be our last conversation about this. But anything you want to leave people with before we wrap up? Any one piece of advice for students or employers or all of the above?
Yeah, for students, I would say, and again, I have a senior in high school right now. These things are all top of mind. Don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. Again, it's easy to read the press and read about all the challenges facing college students and everything else. Don't be. There are plenty of jobs. There will continue to be plenty of jobs. The conversation we're having right now about AI is the same conversation that was taking place in the mid-90s when I was graduating about the internet.
Yep.
Same conversation taking place a decade or two earlier with the PC. Jobs are not being replaced. Not the jobs that you as college students are pursuing. They are going to continue to be there, and they're actually getting much, much more interesting. The second thing I would say beyond don't be discouraged is focus on core skills. We didn't talk much about that here. Everyone is talking about STEM the past several years and about everyone needs to be a computer programmer and those are the only jobs. I would respectfully disagree. And again, the data supports it. Certainly, you're going to want your major in areas of interest and you're going to want to get the quote unquote technical skills, whether it's accounting or biology or anything else, but focus on developing and honing core skills. Problem solving, communication, coachability, adaptability, ability to learn, ability to think and problem solving. Don't underrate those. Don't miss them. Develop them. College is the best place to hone those skills. That philosophy class you're in is vital. It teaches you how to analyze difficult information and craft an argument. That is valuable in any role. The third and final thing I'd leave you with is take ownership. Take ownership. It's great if you have a career center that's holding your hand and coaching you. It's great if you have family or other resources doing that. Whether or not that's the case, you control your destiny. And I'm not talking about sitting at your computer and applying to 1,000 jobs every day. That's a tiny piece of it. What I'm more important talking about is doing the research to understand what it is you think you want to do, having the conversations, reaching out to companies, reach out to us. Reach out to us. I mean, come to the Parker Dewey page, fill out a form. A real person here in the US will follow up with you with a personal email and we're happy to talk with you. You're trying to get into a certain industry or company that may not recruit at your school. Or you're having questions. We're happy to help you. We're happy to help you give these strategies, but it's up to you and you have to take ownership of it. And again, that's true whether it's Parker Dewey, it's true whether it's your career center, it's true whether it's your family or friends or mentors or anything else. Take that ownership, not just to land that job, but it's going to be vital throughout your career.
Fantastic advice. Thank you again, as always. One more thing. Before we wrap up, where do you want people to reach out to you in addition to Parker Dewey? LinkedIn?
Wherever. I'm out there. And again, part of what it comes back to that agency. Like, we're there. If you have questions and you found this interesting, reach out over LinkedIn. Reach out, send me a message. I will respond. It will be me. I do not give my LinkedIn to anyone else. Like, it's not like a marketing person running I do all of the posts you see are things I write. All of the messages are from me.
Yep.
I think it's vital because I want to hear what's going on the ground. I want to hear directly from students and parents and schools and employers. It's the only way we can make sure we're being responsive.
Agreed.
Again, I kind of alluded to it before, like everything we're doing today, the core of Parker Dewey, the concept of using these projects as a way to ultimately improve college to career, broadly defined, has been the vision for the past decade. We are doing today exactly what we plan to do when we turned on the company. The only thing that has changed is as we are continuing to learn, as we're continuing to see things in action, hearing new best practices, we just incorporated it, like the career fair idea, like the keep warm strategy, like the early access, like the parents and alum. These are all ideas that build upon that same core of the date before the engagement and the marriage. And again, part of what's important is for the students and parents and schools and others to reach out, is that's the only way we know what's actually happening on the ground. It's the way new ideas come. It's the way when we're hearing about a challenge that you're facing as a student athlete. This is a real example. A student athlete reached out and talked about, and again, it wasn't like football or basketball where they're getting all this NIL stuff. Actually, it was pre-NIL. This was a student athlete that was doing rowing, reached out and talked about how she was a rower and how she wasn't able to participate in various things, including summer internships because of her commitments, and asking if there was anything that we could do to help. It opened up a whole new idea that I wasn't thinking about. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't a member of the team's idea. It came from a student talking about a challenge, because we're also hearing from companies that want to get to know student athletes. Yes. Because again, they have coachability, as we talked about before. So please, please, please reach out, whether it's on the Parker Dewey site or LinkedIn or anything else. Like, we value the insights and we'll do everything we can to help.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, thank you again for your time and insights and the incredible work you and your team are doing at Parker Dewey. This is such an important shift in how experience gets built, and I know it's going to open doors for so many people. For those of you listening, especially students and recent grads, I want to leave you with this. The ball is in your court. You can't sit around waiting for the perfect internship, project, or opportunity to land in your lap. That's not how this market works anymore. But the good news is you have more control than you think. You have agency. You can reach out, you can explore, create opportunities. You can build experiences that show employers what you're capable of. And that's what actually matters, proof of work. Not just what you say you can do, but what you can demonstrate. That's exactly what I help my clients do. We focus on building real, tangible experiences, projects, micro-internships, and strategic opportunities that help you stand out and move forward. So if you're feeling stuck, don't wait. Start building. And if you need help building, I'm here to help you get started. Visit betsyjewellcoaching.com, where you can learn more and schedule a free discovery call with me. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building your career intelligence.
Forward.